Looping is one of the foundations of modern computer programming. It provided programmers with the ability to repeat some functionality while some condition was true. This works well for automations too. Our loop action allows for two different types of loops: iterative and conditional. Iterative loops allow us to repeat a set of actions for each row of data that we need to process. Conditional loops will repeat forever while a condition is true, and as soon as that condition becomes false, the loop stops repeating. Of these two, the iterative loop is the most commonly used. Iterative loops allow us to process each row of that CSV file, every row of an Excel document, each returned row of a SQL database query, each repeating XML node, and much, much more. Thanks to iterative loops, we don't need to know how many rows of data to process. The loop will take care of that automatically. A common use of the conditional loop is processing repeating pages of data where there's a next button to display the next page. Our loop would be set up to repeat a set of actions while the next button is present. At the last page of results, the next button is no longer present, and the loop stops repeating. Let's create a simple automation that loops through a CSV file, reads the numbers from the CSV file, and then concatenates a code from those numbers and enters it into a secret website. The website that we will enter the completed code into is linked in the description. The page simply has one text field for the code and a Save the World button. There's also a link to the source CSV file that contains our secret code. Save this CSV somewhere where you can easily find it. I'm going to create a new taskbot and name it Save the World. And create and edit. To start, this automation needs a variable to store that secret code. So let's go up to the variables and click the plus icon. This variable is a string variable, so we can leave that type as string. And for the name, I'm going to enter this as S for string, secret code. And then click create. Now let's click on the actions at the bottom of the list. And the first thing I need to have this automation do is to launch the website using a browser open. I'll make sure to specify the browser that I want this to open in. It's not best practice to use default browser. And the next thing I want to do is I want to copy the URL from the other page and paste it in my link to open. Now that the browser is open, let's open the CSV file. I'll be using the CSV text package to open up this file. For this simple automation, I'm going to leave the session name as default, but check with your Center of Excellence to see what their best practice is regarding session names. Since this CSV file is on my C drive, I'm going to choose Desktop File, and then click on Browse and locate that file on my drive. and click Open. As a side note, the contents of this CSV are this. We've got a simple header that says codes, and then we've got the specific codes that are going to comprise our secret code for the website. Based on this, I need to tick the Contains Header checkbox. And since we only have one column of data in here, the delimiter doesn't need to be set. We'll leave that as the default as comma. I am going to tick the boxes for trim leading spaces and trim trailing spaces, just kind of as a best practice. And my file is encoded using UTF-8, so I don't need to change that here. Now it's time for us to loop through the data that we have in the CSV file. So I'm going to go down to the loop package next and add a loop action right after that CSV text open. For the iterator, I'm going to choose CSV text for each row in a CSV text at the top of the list. Leave the session name as default unless you changed it earlier. For the assign the current row to this variable, I'm going to click this create variable to create a new record variable for us. This name is fine for CSV text row, but I'm going to put an R in front of it to denote that this is a record variable. And then create and select. This record variable holds that current row of data from the CSV as we loop through each row. So in our case, it's going to hold each individual code. Within the loop, we need to add a string assign action. In the select the source string variables, click this X in a box and choose my S secret code variable and click Yes Insert. After this S secret codes, I'm going to add a space and then click the X in a box one more time. And this time I'm going to choose my record variable R CSV text row. And the heading that we have in this file is named codes. So I'll use that as my column name. And click Yes Insert. For the destination string variable, I'm going to choose S secret code. Now what this action does is it adds the next red code, which is in that R CSV text row codes variable, and it adds to the end of our secret codes variable. After the loop, we need to close the CSV file that we opened earlier. So back at that CSV text package, I'm going to drag that close action after the loop. Be sure and change your session name if you changed it earlier. Otherwise, if you left it as default, you're good to go. Now that we've got that secret code built from the file, I need to add 2 recorder capture actions to my automation. One to fill in the secret code on the site, right here, and one to click the button to save the world. For the first recorder capture, let's go down to the recorder package and add that capture action right after the CSV text close. For the window, I'm going to choose Browser and then click on this Refresh Windows widget. This will get the listing of the window titles of the browser windows. And when I hit the drop down, I can see my page that I want to automate. Welcome to AA test page. Are you lost? Once you've selected that, click the Capture Object button. Float your mouse over the code text area until it red highlights, and then click once. The action to take on this object will be set text. And then under keystrokes, let's click this X in a box and choose our S secret code variable. And click Yes, Insert. Add one more recorder capture to your automation. Choose Browser for the window type. And choose the Welcome to AA test page. Are you lost? Previously selected. Click on the Capture Object button and move your mouse pointer over the Save the World button until it's red highlighted, and click once. For the action to take on this object, choose Click from the list. We're ready to test this automation, so let's close our other browser window and click the Run button. And we save the world. Now, what did we learn here? There are far fewer use cases for using the loop while type of loop. Most of the time, you'll use that loop iterator type. So what are the differences? The loop iterator allows us to go through a data set one row at a time, do something to process that row of data, then move on to the next row until we run out of rows of data. This works with things like CSV files, Excel files, database queries, and much more. The loop while will repeat forever until the condition becomes false. This is useful for things like getting all the results of a web page where the next button is present. And as soon as the condition changes from true, that the next button exists, to false, that the next button no longer exists, the loop exits and moves on to the next action in the automation. The loop action, once mastered, will be an important part of your toolbox of actions in the Automation Success platform. Thanks for saving the world, and go be great.